Goku with Gohan's potential. This is real, guys, and it will be explained in the next volumes of the manga, and I will prove it to you. Gohan's hidden power literally came from Goku, and this potential is finally very close to being released. So hurry up and subscribe to the channel. Leave your like and activate the notification bell. From the very beginning, the difference would never be in the muscles, nor in the training itself, but in what was always silent in Gohan and only latent in Goku, the ability to break limits not through the desire to fight, but through the absolute need to protect. If Goku had been born with the same hybrid potential that made Gohan an anomaly among the Saiyans, his story would not begin differently in the eyes of the world, but it would be profoundly different in its decisive moments. Of course, before addressing how this will surface in the next volumes, it is necessary to emphasize several points. Goku is indeed a battle genius, as stated by Vegeta himself in his own words, but Goku's power comes from Saiyan Fury, and this is being treated in another way, focused solely through concentration. Goku is reaching very high levels alongside Vegeta, but through divine training. In theory, he would be a Gohan in terms of potential, right guys? Only in theory, because Gohan never had divine training, except with his master Piccolo, but never with a KO, or a god, or even an angel. He only had his powers unlocked by the Grand Kaishin, his own powers. Goku and Vegeta both have something in common. They absorb energy and channel it and use it for themselves. This is something straight from the Saiyans. After all, Vegeta told Kaba that he could reach Super Saiyan Blue, which is a variant of Super Saiyan God, and Vegeta achieved it without needing the ritual itself. Goku, on the other hand, needed it, but when the time ran out, he also took that energy for himself. This is something big, but it does not even compare to what Gohan was. I will cite examples of how tremendous he is, and after that we will continue the point about Goku. In the fight against Raditz, still a child, Gohan instantly surpasses Goku in a moment of desperation. Goku and Piccolo, even fighting together, could not significantly injure Raditz, while Gohan, without any training, releases a power that surpasses Goku at that moment and breaks the Saiyan's armor. During the training period for the arrival of Vegeta and Nappa, even with little time and irregular training, Gohan already shows power spikes that approach or surpass Goku's when he returns from King Kai's planet. In situations of fear or anger, his battle power rises abruptly, something that not even Goku can reproduce without techniques like the Kaioken. On Namek, against the Ginyu Force, Gohan demonstrates sudden increases in power without specific training, facing enemies that previously put Goku in difficulty. These jumps do not come from technical evolution, but from immediate emotional responses. Still on Namek, during the confrontations against Frieza in his initial forms, Gohan manages to injure and push Frieza back at specific moments, even without any transformation, while Goku until then still needed extreme techniques and would end up being defeated repeatedly before achieving Super Saiyan. In the Cell arc, during the Cell games, Gohan becomes clearly stronger than Goku upon reaching Super Saiyan 2. This surpassing happens instantly after the emotional trigger, without Gohan having trained specifically for this form, while Goku, even having mastered the full Super Saiyan, acknowledges that he cannot reach that level. In the final confrontation against Perfect Cell, even injured, with one arm unusable and emotionally unstable, Gohan sustains a Kamehameha superior to Cell's, something Goku was never able to do alone against that enemy, even at full power. In the Majin Buu arc, after the ritual of the Elder Kaishin, Gohan releases all of his hidden power and becomes stronger than Super Saiyan 3 Goku without physical training or new techniques, solely through the release of potential, clearly dominating view. Already in Dragon Ball Super, in the Tournament of Power, maintains with constant training. Finally, in Dragon Ball Super, Superhero, Gohan awakens the beast form abruptly, emotionally, and without specific preparation for that transformation, reaching a level of power that rivals or surpasses Goku and Vegeta in their highest known states at that moment, repeating the pattern that has always defined his trajectory. These are all the relevant and recognized moments in the work in which Gohan surpasses Goku quickly, disproportionate to training, and based solely on potential and emotional trigger. The manga itself is about to return, but this brings us to the fact that Goku is different after the fight against Gohan himself. This is a fact. He understands and feels something change within him after dealing with that energy, and we know that when he and Vegeta deal with these energies, they take them for themselves. And this will make total sense in the next chapters. After all, he has to have something against Frieza, doesn't he? And this is the trump card. Totally plausible. Goku will now possess Gohan's evolutionary potential through beast energy. But anyway, before going straight into Super, already taking out this fact that will occur, what would Goku be like from his first steps in classic Dragon Ball? What could change up to the present day? Well, if Goku since his childhood had been this heir to Gohan's potential, Goku would still be the naive boy found by Grandpa Gohan from Mount Pozo. He would still learn martial arts out of curiosity and the joy of self-improvement, but from early on his growth would have something strange, almost uncomfortable, not in the sense of immediate brute strength, but in the way his body would react to emotion. In moments of real danger, when someone close was threatened, his energy would rise abruptly, disordered, almost instinctive, something that even Goku himself would not understand. Grandpa Gohan would notice this in small episodes, like when the boy hurt himself trying to protect him, or when he reacted with silent fury to any external threat. It was not blind rage, but a pure protective impulse, something the Saiyans carried in a primitive way, but that here emerged refined, deep, almost too human. This characteristic would not make Goku more aggressive. On the contrary, the greater the internal potential, the greater his unconscious need to keep everything under control. Goku would become even kinder, even lighter, as if his own instinct knew that if he lets certain emotions slip, something irreversible could happen. This balance would be the first determining factor of his future evolution. During training with Master Roshi, the difference would begin to become clearer. While Krillin would evolve steadily, Goku would have spikes. In normal situations, his advances would even be modest. But when emotionally pressured, when Krillin was at risk, or when he felt the real possibility of failing to protect someone, his strength would jump absurdly. Roshi would realize that this did not come from training itself, but from something Goku still did not know how to access consciously. Unlike a natural talent, it was a closed reservoir that only opened in extreme situations. This logic would remain in practically the entire classic phase. Against Tao Pai Pai, against King Piccolo, against Piccolo Jr., Goku would not win just because he trained more, but because each threat carried a growing emotional weight. The death of Krillin by King Piccolo, for example, would not only awaken his fury, as in canon, but would cause something much deeper. The power that would emerge at that moment would not be just that of a furious warrior, but of someone who feels, for the first time, that he failed as a protector. The fight against King Piccolo would end in a similar way, but with a Goku much more internally marked, not by rage, but by the fear of losing those he loves. When Raditz arrived on Earth, Goku would already be a different adult, still smiling, still passionate about battles, but with a quieter sense of responsibility. Upon discovering his Saiyan origin, the impact would not be only identity-based, but emotional. Knowing he came from a race of conquerors would awaken an internal conflict in him, because his latent powers seemed to contradict his peaceful nature. In the fight against Raditz, Goku's sacrifice would still happen, but not as an impulsive act. It would be a decision made the instant he realizes that his potential is not sufficient at that moment to protect Gohan if he remains alive. Goku's death, in this scenario, would become the first great catalyst of a different evolution in the afterlife. In the training with King Kai, the result would be frightening. Goku would learn the Kaioken and the Spirit Bomb as in the original, but his body would react to these techniques in an even more unstable way. The Kaioken, in particular, would have an almost amplifying effect on the hybrid potential he carries. It would not only multiply his strength, but disorganize his natural limits. King Kai would quickly realize that Goku was not made to force his body this way for long, because each excessive use would bring something dangerous closer, something that not even the gods would fully understand. Even so, Goku would learn to use these techniques with an almost obsessive discipline, precisely because he feared what could happen if he lost control. The Saiyan Saga would be the first major point of real divergence. Against Nappa, Goku would display power similar to the canon, but with something different in his eyes. There would be no pleasure in humiliating the enemy. Each blow would be fast, precise, almost urgent. When Vegeta entered the scene, the fight would unfold in a similar way, until the moment Goku was pushed to the limit. The Kaioken ×4 would not only put Goku on the same level as Vegeta, but would make his power oscillate violently. At certain moments, He would seem far above the Saiyan Prince, only to fall shortly after. Vegeta would feel this and be disturbed. It was not a technique. It was as if Goku were holding himself back without knowing how to fully let go. After the fight, the decision to spare Vegeta would gain an even stronger meaning. Goku would not spare him only out of warrior pride, but out of fear. Fear of himself. Fear that, if he continued fighting to the end, something inside him would awaken with no return. On Namek, everything would intensify. The hostile environment, the constant threat to Gohan and Krillin, and Frieza's oppressive presence would create the perfect scenario for Goku's potential to begin leaking more frequently. Unlike child Gohan, who exploded in power uncontrollably, Goku would have contained outbursts, as if his adult mind were desperately trying to hold back a force he did not fully understand. Krillin's death, once again, would be the breaking point, but here something fundamental would occur. Super Saiyan would emerge as in the canon, but its origin would be even more emotionally tied to the instinct to protect than to fury. The golden hair and green eyes would not be just symbols of rage, but of a forced transformation, a state in which Goku finally stops repressing what he feels. Frieza would quickly realize that this Super Saiyan was not just powerful, but dangerous, unstable, as if it could evolve even further at any second. The victory over Frieza would not close Goku's emotional arc, it would only deepen it. He would leave Namek with the clear feeling that Super Saiyan was not the peak, but only the first layer of something much greater. In the following years, this difference would become increasingly evident. While Vegeta would seek power through pride and obsession, Goku would train with a quieter objective: protect his family, protect his friends, protect the future. This focus would make his potential respond faster to training, but it would also make it more demanding. Transformations that would take years for other Saiyans would be mastered by Goku at a frightening pace, not because he was more technically talented, but because his body would recognize danger before it even happened. Super Saiyan 2, for example, would emerge in a way similar to Gohan's during the Cell games, but in a different context. Upon realizing that Cell still represented a threat to the planet, and above all, to Gohan, Goku would reach this level before even dying, not as a stable form, but as a temporary, emergency state that would leave him exhausted and emotionally shaken. This would explain his decision to entrust the fight to Gohan, not because he believed his son was stronger at that moment, but because he understood that his own potential could lead him down a path with no return if he kept forcing it. From that point on, Goku's distancing from the world of the living would gain a new meaning. In the other world, he would train not only to become stronger, but to understand his own nature. Super Saiyan 3 would arise as in the canon, but it would clearly be an incomplete form, a necessary mistake, a stage that forces brute power without resolving the internal conflict. Goku would understand that this transformation was not sustainable because it ignored the true trigger of his potential. Already in the era of Beerus and the gods, this difference would become even deeper. The Super Saiyan God ritual would awaken something dormant, not just a divine form, but an emotional clarity. Goku would realize that the power of the gods does not come from rage or extreme effort, but from absolute control over oneself. This revelation would make him gradually approach a state similar to what Gohan achieves with the beast form, but by a different path. While Gohan reaches beast by fully accepting his protective instinct and releasing everything at once, Goku would approach it gradually, almost painfully. Ultra Instinct would emerge as a technical response, but it would not be the apex. He would realize that the true limit was not the absence of thought, but the fusion between instinct, emotion, and consciousness. In this scenario, the beast form would not appear first in Gohan, but in Goku, although with another name, another aesthetic, another meaning. It would not be a wild explosion, but a state in which his aura would become dense, almost silent, with eyes carrying a primitive intensity. A Goku who fights not for pleasure, not for challenge, but out of absolute necessity. This state would not erase his personality, but would make it more serious, more focused, closer to the figure of a guardian than of a warrior. When Gohan finally reached his own version of Beast, it would not be a copy, but a rawer, more emotional, more explosive reflection. Father and son would become two sides of the same anomaly, each representing a possible path to the same potential. The fights, from then on, would completely change in tone. They would no longer be about who is stronger, but about who can sustain that power. without losing themselves. Goku, having spent his entire life holding himself back, would be the one who best understands the risks. Gohan, having awakened everything at once, would be the one who would most need to learn. In the end, the world would not have an invincible Goku, but a more conscious, more dangerous, and paradoxically more human Goku. A warrior who knows that if he lets his potential run free without purpose, there will be no enemy capable of stopping him. But perhaps there will also be nothing left of the man he always was.